the best thing to do for your baby in terms of their overall well-being is to focus on that attachment, and that those first 3 years are really critical in our baby's life.
Mm.
You innately want to respond to your baby when they cry, and now if you look at all of the neuroscience behind it, it's supporting you and showing you that is actually the best thing to do for your baby is to be there and to be responsive to their needs.
Hello and welcome to the Mama Culture. This is a place for you to be supported, inspired, and resourced on your unique journey through motherhood. I'm your host, Corey Zorns, a fellow mama, here to bring you information and wisdom on parenting, wellness, personal growth, and everything in between so you can thrive as a modern mama. So grab your favorite warm drink, settle in, and get ready for relatable, honest, and empowering conversations about the most important job in the world. This is the Mama Culture. Hi, Melissa. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So excited to jump in today on holistic sleep. I cannot wait. I was just telling you today, I am a tired, sleep-deprived mama. We had a long night last night. And then I still woke up at 7 a.m. to get my workout in. Because when I get my I'm like, if I'm going to interview someone, I need to get my workout in so I can think clearly. So
Yeah,
got my
good
Pilates
idea.
in. But yeah, I'm a little tired. I have some coffee next to me. I drink decaf, but it gives me some energy. I just put some mushrooms and lion's mane in it. So I am
Yeah,
riding
nice.
off my Pilates workout and some decaf coffee. But I cannot wait to dive into the sleep stuff because,
Yeah.
yeah, me and River are going through just such a journey with sleep. And I know this is such a big space for mamas where they need more information and more support and more knowledge. And there's just so much here. So I'm
Yeah,
very excited.
me
Okay.
too.
So I love what you created, Cocoon and Cradle. So you've created courses and support and coaching and just so much around supporting moms around both breastfeeding and sleep. And you've been supporting moms for over a decade. So I want to know, how did you come into this area of sleep and breastfeeding? Why did you decide to focus on this? Because you're also a pediatric nurse, a midwife, a mama. So how did you come into focusing on sleep and breastfeeding?
Yeah, well, it probably all happened. So I had my first child, Harvey, about 5.5 years ago, and I had already been working as a pediatric nurse and a midwife for about 10 years prior to that in the hospital system. So I felt prepared. Well, I thought I was prepared when I was pregnant. I was like, okay, I've been working with kids literally all my adult life. Like I've been a pediatric nurse and a midwife for the last 10 years. I'll be fine having a baby. Like it should be all good. And then basically had a baby and my world was kind of flipped upside down. And I realized that it was nowhere near as easy as I thought it was going to be. And that there was so much support lacking in that postpartum period. And I just remember feeling like I felt like everybody had lied to me because I remember getting this beautiful card on my last day of work where I had all these lovely messages in it saying it's going to be the best time of your life. You're going to enjoy every second, like all these really optimistic messages. And then I had him and I was in this real like sleep deprived haze a few months in. And I just felt like it was one of the hardest times in my life. And that why was everybody telling me it was going to be this beautiful, blissful time 24/7? Because it definitely does not feel like that right now. And yeah, that kind of probably sparked my interest in getting more support and then being able to help other mums as well. So I actually went on to do a holistic sleep coaching program, done two actually, and then still felt like I needed a bit more support. Even though I was a midwife, I felt like mums could benefit from extra support with breastfeeding as well because they are so linked, sleep and feeding. And so then I did some extra study as well and became a international board certified lactation consultant, which is the gold standard in lactation support and care. So now I like to combine those and I find they just interlink and work so beautifully together.
Wow. One of our past guests we had on is a nurse as well for mamas and babies.
Nice.
She has one little one and then she's pregnant right now. And she said the same thing. She's like, I've been doing this. This is my job. When the baby comes, I'll be all set. And then her baby came.
Yeah.
What's going on? I don't know. So it's so funny that like
Yeah.
this can even be a profession. And then it happens to you and you're like, okay, I need more support and more resources. And I also find there's so much with mama intuition and moms learning to come back to their intuition with the right resources and support around them is, I feel like, such a key for it all.
Being that first time mum, I felt like in particular, there was just so much misinformation. And that was the other thing that as soon as I had Harvey, I was bombarded with all of this confusing, misleading, often harmful information. And then it makes you, like you say, second guess yourself and second guess your own intuition.
I definitely want to talk about that, the misinformation that's out there, why it's
Mm.
out there. Yeah, so we will dive into that. And how does it feel now? So now with your 5-month-old, do you feel more prepared? How is that journey going?
Oh, it's so different, honestly. I feel
Mm.
like every child you learn more, and then I've obviously done more professionally along the way as well over the last 5 years. But I would say I'm definitely the least stressed now that I have 3 children compared to when I had Harvey, which is so
Wow.
bizarre because you would think it would be the other way around. But I feel like I just know so much more now, and my approach is just so different now compared to when I had Harvey, that I suppose I just feel so much more
Mm.
confident with my choices, and it's just completely different, which is, again, like you would think the opposite.
I love hearing that, and it's giving me so much hope. I plan to wait a little longer for baby number 2, hopefully a year or
Yeah.
2, we'll see, we might have a surprise. But me and my partner were talking about this, we're like, "Okay, so is it a greater load, or with every baby, does it get easier and then the whole load gets easier?" We're like, "What is the percentages? How does this work?" And we were trying to
Yeah.
calculate, like, baby number 2 and baby number 3, and so hearing you, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I could have 3 babies, I could do that, I want that."
Yeah.
So, thank you for inspiring me. Okay,
Oh, my
so
pleasure.
I want to dive into a lot of the sleep stuff. I'm fascinated by it. I think this is, such a place where mamas need more information. But I love what you said that breastfeeding and sleep is so intertwined. So knowing that, I'm like, let's just intertwine it and really dive into both. So let's just jump in here. First of
Yeah.
all, for people to understand holistic sleep, what is holistic sleep?
So, I suppose to summarize, it's kind of looking at sleep from a lot of different aspects. So, I think a lot of the times we don't realize how many different things in our life affect sleep. So, it's looking at sleep from like a developmental perspective, an attachment perspective, a biological perspective, and relational. And it's all the different aspects that work together essentially that affect our sleep and that we can optimize. So, I suppose holistic sleep, in essence, is more of a attachment focused, I suppose, removing responsiveness in order to change the baby's behavior, whereas holistic sleep, we're essentially adding in more responsiveness and focusing on that connection in order to improve sleep. So, whereas sleep training is more focusing on removing responsiveness in order to change a behavior, and holistic sleep coaching is focusing on really adding responsiveness and focusing on building that connection in order to improve sleep. So, holistic sleep is more of an attachment focused approach, and I suppose sleep training is more a behavioral focused approach.
I'm like, I'm just throwing out all my questions right now because I'm like, there's just so much going through my mind. So let me share what's going on in my
Okay.
mind. So right now in our society, there's so much information and
Mm-hmm.
misinformation out there. And I feel like the people that believe in responsiveness, holistic sleep, co-sleeping, I feel like this is the way. And then there's people that are like, no, you can sleep train. This is the way. This is okay. It's okay to do this. And this is better for everyone. So, why do you think there's just two different paths when we look at sleep? Why do you think there's these two different
Mm.
paths? How do you think this came about? And where do you think this started? Where we're like, there's two different views to look at it. Both views think they're correct in
Yeah.
this. And yeah, I guess where is this misinformation coming from? And why are there two such distinct approaches to baby sleep? Such a
Yeah.
big thing.
So I can tell you exactly where it came from. So
Amazing.
basically, a couple of 100 years ago, there was this massive shift. And so it was around the time of the Industrial Revolution, and mums were starting to have to go back to work to support families as well. And essentially, before that time, babies were always kept close to mums. It was always very responsive, and they were fed on demand. And it was a very responsive relationship where you would learn how to mother within a community of other mums and other people and grandparents and family and things like that. And then a few 100 years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution and things started to change. And around that time, there was a few prominent pediatricians, a couple of middle-aged white men who never mothered their own children, who decided to say that essentially being responsive is wrong and that your baby is manipulating you and that's why they're crying. And the best thing to do is to be strong and to leave your baby, essentially to cry it out. And then since then, a lot of things have changed. We've got all these new a lot of this research in neuroscience that have essentially said that all of these initial ideas aren't accurate. And even the people themselves who came up with these ideas have now said that wasn't right. But that was the start of sleep training culture where basically mums were told to be strong, let your baby cry it out because it's the best thing for them. And so that sparked pretty much the whole sleep training industry that we see today, which is actually more of a Western concept than anything else. There's a lot of areas in the world that don't do sleep training. I think it would be so bizarre to leave your baby in another room alone to cry, but it's a very Western phenomenon. So that's all where the whole idea of sleep training started back a few hundred years ago, and then it's progressed since then, and we've still got a lot of misinformation and myths around it now. And then I would say, I suppose family to family, you're just going to have to do what you feel aligns with your own personal values. So some families do find that different forms of sleep training, that's what they have decided that they want to do, and they feel like that just sits best within their own family values, and that's what they would like to do for them, which is completely fine. And other families find that it doesn't sit within their values and they want to do something different. And again, I feel like sometimes people don't realize maybe that there is a space between cried out and waited out, and that you don't have to be one or the other. There's that space in the middle, which is what I'm trying to promote, I suppose, which is that you can improve your sleep and optimize different areas of your sleep and your little one's sleep without having to leave them alone to cry. Does that answer your question at all, or have I gone off on a bit of a tangent?
I'm like, it's a rabbit hole of a question. We could just keep diving in and in.
I know.
In. So let's keep diving in a little more. Do you think there are gentle methods of sleep training? Like I've heard, you go in at 1 minute and then 3 minutes and then 5 minutes and then you're like patting their butt and this and that. I don't know. There's all these different techniques that I've heard about. Do you think there are gentle methods of sleep training that work?
So when you say work, I'm doing like inverted commas that nobody can see, but all like sleep training will work in the sense that it's going to change the baby's behavior. And essentially what happens is that the baby stops signaling. So they'll stop calling out for you because that's the behavior that you're encouraging over that 3 days a week or however long you're sleep training for. But the research shows us that it doesn't decrease the wake ups dramatically or increase the total overall amount of sleep dramatically. And that in a research study I was looking at recently, there was about a 14-minute difference between babies who had been sleep trained and not sleep trained. So the babies that were sleep trained slept for about 14 minutes more on average in 24 hours, which is crazy. It's so minute, like it's literally nothing. So babies are still waking up, but they're just not signaling out for their carers.
So you said sleep training, it works as in it trains babies to stop calling out for their moms. And what do you think the effect is of that?
So if you look at the research, it's still very much all coming out at the moment. So we're probably going to have a lot more in the next, 50 years that people can draw on and actually have a look. But essentially what we do know is that the best thing to do for your baby in terms of their overall well-being is to focus on that attachment, and that those first 3 years are really critical in our baby's life. So they won't I suppose it would be quite unethical to do like sleep training studies where you're essentially putting babies alone to cry, because that wouldn't be a very ethical study to do. But what the research is all coming out with is showing how beneficial that attachment is, and how by responding to your baby, you are literally setting them up for life in terms of pretty much all areas of their life. That responsiveness, especially in those 3 years, is really critical. And I think hopefully that's why there's a little bit of a start of a movement towards being able to feel confident and guilt-free in responding to your baby and not feeling like you're setting up a bad habit or doing anything wrong, because you innately want to do that. You innately want to respond to your baby when they cry. And now if you look at all of the neuroscience behind it, it's supporting you and showing you that is actually the best thing to do for your baby, is to be there and to be responsive to their needs.
Thank you for that. The other thing you said, the bad habit thing, I think that's another rumor that goes around. It's like that if we are too responsive to our babies all the time, if we are always there, always supporting them, always nurturing them, that this will create a bad habit for the future. And so what do you think about that?
Definitely not true. So I don't think there are any, unless your baby is like smoking and drinking, like there's no bad habits when it comes to our babies, and especially in terms of being like of responsiveness. What if you did look at the research with the responsiveness, it's actually the opposite. So they find that babies who have had that really responsive caregiver, especially in those first few years, it has the opposite effect of being, I think a lot of people feel like they'll never be independent, but they're actually some of the most independent children and young adults, the ones that had that real responsiveness. And I think a lot of the time we maybe are told that we have to force independence early on. But yeah, the latter is true. I think children actually become independent from having years of that dependency.
This is the same information that felt really innately aligned with how I wanted to raise River and how I wanted to parent. And yeah, what I felt and what I knew was true, and the research as well that I saw was especially those first 3 years where their brain is developing so much, their nervous
Yeah.
system is developing, like all their systems are developing, how they see the world. And when they feel so safe in those first, especially 3
Hmm.
years, when they feel so safe in attachment, then later on in the future, they can feel free and independent because they feel safe in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, it was so true.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I'm fascinated about the sleep stuff. I took a course as well. I mentioned this before on innate traditions about physiological baby development and how
Yes.
their brains develop and how their nervous systems develop. And one thing I found fascinating that was shared in the course was infants who co-sleep have a 28, so they might be sleeping like having the same amount of wake ups and stuff like that, but they have a 28% increase in light sleep
Hmm.
and a 47% decrease in deep sleep,
Yeah.
as well as longer sleep time. So there was a study that was actually when they're co-sleeping, they sleep longer, but they have a really big increase in light
Hmm.
sleep and they have a really big decrease in deep sleep. And why she said this was so important is because actually their brains are building and developing in the light
Yeah.
sleep. So what she was teaching us was all of those wake ups to see if mom is there, to feed, to go in and out of sleep is, first of all, they're learning how to sleep, and secondly, it's healthy for their brain development. Like, this is the design,
Yes,
this is the way.
exactly. And I feel like a lot of
um
mums, I think if you can view it that way, it just changes your mindset, doesn't it? It's like, wow, like
yeah.
this is what my baby's meant to be doing. And they're forming all of those
Yes.
beautiful connections in their brain. And it's
Mm.
protective against SIDS as well, being in that lighter sleep.
Yeah,
So many
yeah.
benefits.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think that's why I wrote that down to share it, because you're right. Knowing that, it made me feel so comfortable, like, oh, this is the way, this is the
Yeah.
design. And amazing that he's waking up. 18 months now, we're waking up all throughout the night because his brain is developing, because he's looking for that attachment with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about in the course I took as well about SIDS, and when babies are co-sleeping or sleeping next to us, they are regulating with our heart rate, our
Hmm.
breathing, our body temperature. And when they are left in another room, sometimes they are going into deep stages of sleep and they can't get out of it. And that's when things like SIDS can happen. And
Yeah.
it's so scary and so sad. But before the Industrial Revolution, the way was to sleep with our babies.
Mm.
And then in most places around the world, like I live here in Bali and in most Asian cultures, they are like the whole family co sleeps in one
Yeah,
bed.
exactly.
So it is the way and it is the design that we've been doing for all of
Yeah, and
time.
it's interesting, isn't it, when you go to different countries? And I know in Japan,
Yeah.
it's just everybody co-sleeps. That's the norm. Like, there's so
Mhm.
many different countries
Yep.
and areas around the world where that's just the norm. There's
Yeah.
no other way.
Yeah. Another thing I learned was like, yeah, in the 1900s, the Industrial Revolution, that's also when they started drugging a lot of moms for birth.
Yes, and
Those
even
th
drugging
these white
babies as
doctors.
well. They would even give
Yes.
babies drugs too
Yes.
to help make them sleepy.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
And that's why they said they were often separating moms and babies, because the moms were on drugs and because the moms were on medicine. They thought it was unsafe for babies and moms to sleep together, so they
Mhm.
started separating them. It's so interesting to go back to the exact time where it happened and where sleep training came about and why it came
Yeah,
about. And then going back to the old ways and seeing what's there. And then, yeah, you're right. Every family is so different. Every mama is so different. Every family's needs are so different. I think the best thing is having all the information
yeah,
and then deciding what you need to do with it that really supports your whole family.
definitely. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? It's just when you don't have that
Yeah.
information, like you can't make an informed
Yeah.
decision. So you need all of the information
Mm.
so that you can really make an
Yeah.
informed decision about what you want to do.
Yeah, I have friends with babies around the same age as River, and they've to do ways of gentle sleep training that has worked well for their family and while still being responsive. And there's just different ways. And I
Yeah.
think the most important thing is knowing all the information
Hmm.
and then really using your innate wisdom and intuition with what is right. And for me, that has been like, River needs to be right in bed next to me. We have a queen size
Yeah.
bed, and literally we take up 1/4 of the bed. Like, River has to roll so close next to me, and I'm, like, literally on the
Oh,
edge, and that is
yes.
how we sleep every single night, and I love it, and it's beautiful. And I also have a ring. I have a ring, the Aura Ring, that tracks all my sleep, so I know exactly how many
Oh,
wake
yeah.
ups, because I would never remember, like, our wake ups, like, he can literally find the boob while I'm still sleeping, like, we don't even have to
Yeah.
shift around or
Yeah, you don't
move.
even really need to.
But every morning I'm like, "Okay, how did we sleep?" And we pretty much have, I think, 2 to 6 wake ups every single night, and I still mostly get pretty good sleep. So that's the next question I want to ask you. But yeah, for me, I've decided that, like, with my own wisdom, with my own feeling of what's right, like, that is how we're going to sleep. And it's worked amazing for us. And so I do know mamas who do this and it works so well and they're not cranky and groggy every morning. And sometimes today I'm a little tired, but yeah, I know there's different ways. And like what you said, I think finding the most gentle way, the most gentle and the
Mm.
most responsive way, even if maybe you don't want to sleep in bed with your baby, what is the most gentle, responsive way?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. But okay, so that leads to my next question. How do you think mamas can get more sleep with like holistic sleep, whether they're sleeping next to their baby or their baby's maybe in a crib next to the bed? How can mamas get more sleep?
So there's a lot of things that you can do, hey, that can support your baby's sleep, but then also support your own sleep. And if anybody listening, I have a really good freebie on the website that actually will let you go through kind of back to basics a bit and go through 10 different areas that you can start to optimize. So if they go to Cocoon and Cradle, a little pop-up box, cocoonandcradle.com, a little pop-up box will come up and you can download the freebie. But honestly, there's so many different ways. And I feel like just taking it back to basics sometimes is all you need to do, and you might not need to do anything else. So, looking at things like your baby's nutrition and your own nutrition as well. So, as your little one having a really like a rainbow diet, you're offering lots of different foods from the different food groups. And then as well as your own diet, I'm sure you know what a difference your own diet makes with how well you feel. Are you just eating like sugary foods all day, or are you having a balanced diet yourself? Even looking at things like getting outside, so getting into nature with your little one every day is so beneficial for them. And the research definitely supports this in terms of like natural light and all of the wonderful effects that can have. Even getting outside when the sun's setting, the sky starts to change colors. That's actually signaling to your brain it's time to start winding down and time to start getting ready for bed. So even getting outside with your little one at that time of day can really help. And then as well, focusing on, there's so many different areas, but focusing on your little one's sleep hygiene, but as well as your own sleep hygiene. So sleep hygiene is talking about the things that we do during the day and before bedtime that kind of prepare us for sleep. So if we're thinking about our own sleep hygiene, you want to be making sure again that you're eating nutritious meals and that you're getting outside and getting some exercise, that after your little one goes to bed at nighttime, or actually even before your little one goes to bed at nighttime, that you're dimming all of the lights in the house and you're not having these bright lights on everywhere, that you're starting to reduce a bit of that stimulation so you're not being overstimulated, or you're not looking at your phone right before bed or looking at an iPad or something that's sending that blue light into your brain, which is going to keep you awake and not let you relax. It's so important. Well, it can be really beneficial to focus on our little one's routine and that they have a kind of predictable sequence of activities before bed that can often really help. But then as well as focusing on your own routine can really help too. And I feel like if you think about all the ways that you can support your little one, often there's similar ways that you can support yourself so that you're both getting better sleep. But if you go to that website, the pop-up box will come up and it will go through a whole heap of more steps and different tips as well.
I feel like everyone needs to download that and look at it.
It's there. I've tried to make it really really handy. So yeah, I feel like definitely get on there and have a look.
That sounds perfect. And whether maybe your kids are grown up or maybe your baby one's not even here, like literally sleep hygiene and finding this rhythm and the routine for yourself as well is just as powerful.
Exactly.
So regardless of where you're at on your mama journey, go download this.
Yeah.
We'll link it. I love the topic of sleep. So I'm also super into biohacking. I've been into health and wellness for the past 10 years. I thought I was going to go, straight down that path and be a nutritionist. And I used to work for doctors in LA doing lab tests and supplements. It's like, this has been my obsession. I love all of it. And I think maybe the past 3 years, I think when I was getting my Oura ring and studying sleep more and learning more about biohacking sleep, I got so deep into it.
Awesome.
And I love everything you touched on because those are such big things in affecting if we sleep well or not.
Yeah.
And I have the evidence of it because for the past maybe 3 or 4 years, I've been tracking my sleep. And with my ring that I have, I don't only just track like how much sleep I have, I also track how well my body recovered. So how my resting heart rate was, how my HRV was, all these things that show me like an overall picture of how I did that night.
Amazing.
And everything you mentioned literally has such a big impact. So diet, my whole family, I mean, like we're very big on food and very big on diet. I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah.
But one big thing I noticed with sleep is what I eat before bed has such a big impact on how I sleep.
Definitely.
And if I eat too close to bedtime or if I'm eating too much like sugary foods or carby foods, first of all, I have like crazy dreams of eating sugar before bed. But if I space out that last meal before bed, And I don't do a big space, especially because like I'm breastfeeding all night. I need a
You're
lot of
hungry.
fuel.
Yeah.
But if I'm freaking hungry, but if I do the right foods, like if I'm
Yeah.
having proteins and fats before bed, even if it's not space because I'm gonna be breastfeeding, especially like new mamas. Like I know you might
Mhm.
need a snack on your nightstand for, when you're eating the right foods and when you're eating fats and proteins, like that has led to such better recovery scores when I get like a score in the morning, a sleep
Oh,
score and a recovery
wow.
score.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And that has led to much better sleep for me. So yeah, you're right. Diet is so big. And then diet for your little ones too, if they are eating food, has such a big impact.
Yeah.
And then right before you jumped on, I was on Instagram and this post came up. And it was so funny. It was like the first post that popped up and it was all about sleep deprivation. So it said how harmful sleep deprivation is. And by the way, there's another fact that I wrote down for my course. It said, I think after the first year, mamas are deprived on about 600 hours of sleep with the first year of a baby. I don't know if do you know
Yes,
what that
there
number
is.
is?
I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but yes, you are going to get less sleep after you have a baby than you did beforehand. But the really
Yep.
interesting thing is, which you probably learned in your course as well, is that we process sleep differently at nighttime. So like our brain will actually basically pick like the best part of sleep to get and focus on that
Mm.
really like restorative sleep in the bits of sleep that we do
Wow.
have. So even when we have a baby
Yeah.
and if we're co-sleeping or if we're getting up at nighttime to wherever they are, when we are sleeping as a mum, our brain is actually prioritizing that right sleep that we
Mm.
need and that restorative sleep that we need. So even though we're getting less sleep overall, our bodies
Yep.
essentially are built for this. And so they're still prioritizing it to make sure that we are getting the rest.
That's how I feel. I feel like our bodies are freaking meant for this.
Yeah.
So when River came along, straight away up all hours of the night, doing the thing, smile on my face, like,
Mm.
okay, let's do this. Right every morning, like, good morning,
Yeah.
everyone. Like just so happy. And in the beginning, my partner slept with us and he was such a grump some days. I love you,
Yeah.
baby, but so grumpy on some days.
Yeah.
And the sleep deprivation affected him so differently. So I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
Like, I swear mamas are just built for this. There is something pumping our hormones,
Yeah.
the oxytocin from breastfeeding. But, a year and a half of doing this, and like, I feel amazing. I have a smile on my
Yeah. You look
face.
amazing.
Once, thank you. Once in a while, I'm a little tired or a little grumpy, but like probably the same amount as before I had a baby, just the same
Yeah.
amount of like having a bad sleep once in a while. So I feel like we're meant for this. Like you said, your brain
Yeah.
prioritizes.
And I mean, like, I've obviously just got a 5-month-old. She's kind of come in and I've woken up a bit more than I was because I was obviously like sleeping through before I had her. But we all are going to have those nights where they're a bit harder. And
Hmm.
whenever our little ones go
Yeah.
through these huge periods of development, that's often around the same time that they start to wake up a little bit more overnight. And so even then thinking in the morning, like you say, I know you said I wake up with a smile on my face. What can I do today to make myself feel a bit better? So if you wake up feeling
Mm,
tired, like I know you said this morning, you've already been already been to a Pilates class. So
yeah.
like I will always, if I wake up feeling tired, like literally open all the curtains in the house, let all the sun in.
Mm.
The first thing I will do is go for a shower because that just like, I don't think I could mum without a hot shower. Like just getting in and just having a shower, having that
Mm.
little bit of like alone time for 10 minutes. And I don't know, it just makes me feel so much better. Even if you can have, sometimes I try to do the cold blast at the end, but I'm not very good at doing the cold blast at the end sometimes. Yeah,
I
getting
love a
up.
good cold plunge.
Oh, I try, but I'm a bit of a baby with it.
Mm.
But yeah, doing those things, moving your body, maybe seeing some friends, having a nutritious breakfast,
Yeah.
and all of those things can really help if you wake up feeling tired. And something that I've
Oh
only
my
just
God.
started doing fairly recently, which I should have done ages ago, is I'll do overnight oats now. So it's just already in the
Mm.
morning. So it's like overnight oats with like chia seeds and a few different things in there. And then it's so simple to make the night before or a couple of days before, and then it's all done. So just I feel like doing those little hacks as well can make it easier when you're tired.
Yeah. That's so true. Those things that put a smile on your face. Oh yeah, so I forgot to even get to this. So the post that I pulled up right before we started
Oh
talking,
yeah.
it says for people that are sleep deprived, the effects are really harmful on long-term health. Like sleep is such an important part of our health and our well-being. But I think first of all, like mom should have like a path. There's just something that happens in a mom's body that like it's not detrimental. But also they say working out can literally undo the effects of sleep deprivation.
Wow,
So
that's
if
amazing.
you do have a really bad night of sleep, it's like last night we didn't sleep much. My little one just wanted to be on the boob. He has a tooth coming in, but I woke up and like my body just knows it's like I need to move. And even if it's gentle,
Yeah.
like going to Pilates or going to yoga,
Yeah.
I feel like it really balances out my lack of sleep. But I do the same thing in the mornings. Like my partner comes in and opens up all the windows and I let the sun in and I put some music on and we dance and have a good breakfast and a protein smoothie. So I think it's so right. It's like what puts a smile on your face in the morning,
Definitely. It all
when you're
helps,
waking
doesn't
up
it?
in those, yeah, in those long nights and the long hours of you and baby and feeding and milk and all of it.
Gonna say as well, I know you
Mm.
said before, like our bodies are made for it. And in terms of breastfeeding as well, there's hormones in our breast milk that are designed to make us as mums feel sleepy. So they make baby feel
Mm.
sleepy, but then are also designed for us to feel sleepy so we go back to sleep easily. And it's just crazy. I just find it so amazing how our bodies work.
It's such a beautiful design. Like nature perfectly designed all of this, and
Yeah.
there's nothing we need to like fix or change or do differently. It's like, how can we just follow nature's footprints of the design that they already built for us? So, what do you think about feeding to sleep? This is another one that people talk about, feeding to sleep and feeding throughout the night. Some people are for it, some people are against it. I think the people that are against it, it's like the same things you kind of talked about before. And I think the same time period where they said, don't, nurture your babies and don't feed them to sleep. But what do you think about feeding all throughout the night? Like, should mamas do it? How long should they do it for? What does it look like? If you can just touch on, yeah, this breastfeeding throughout the night.
Yeah. So breastfeeding to sleep in particular is a really normal biological, like it's a biological norm. So I feel like a lot of mums, when they have a baby, they're wondering, why is my baby always falling asleep when I'm feeding them? Like, how can I stop this from happening? But again, like you were saying before, it's literally mother nature for your baby to fall asleep on the breast because you have those special hormones in your breast milk that are designed to make your baby feel sleepy and fall asleep essentially, and designed to help you feel relaxed as well. And so it's really, really normal for your baby to fall asleep on the breast, which I feel like I get so many messages from mums worried about this. I just want to put that out there first of all. And then it's also normal for feeding throughout the night as well. And especially when our little ones are younger, is even more important because what happens is that one of our breastfeeding hormones, prolactin, is highest overnight. And so when we are breastfeeding overnight, that's actually really protective of our breast milk supply too. So often I'll hear people that have come across advice like you need to stop all night feeds. And the person giving that advice might not realize that could really be detrimental to a mum's milk supply. It could literally really plummet her milk supply and drop her milk supply by a lot. And so you've got to think about what is the effect that this is going to have. So we know that especially our little ones, they have really small tummies. And so breast milk is something that's really easily digested. So it's really normal for them to have frequent feeds overnight. And again, that's protecting the mum's milk supply. And for some babies, those night feeds are going to continue for a really long time, well into toddlerhood. And then for other babies, they might stop earlier. And just from my experience, I find that's just so unique baby to baby because all little ones are completely different. Even if you're listening and you have multiple children, you've probably found that all your children are different with what they do when it comes to sleep and feeding. Some little ones will they might just start, like for instance, Harvey, we didn't sleep train or do anything like that, but he just started sleeping through the night probably at 7 months or 8 months, which is pretty early.
Wow.
And then I wouldn't feed overnight because he obviously wouldn't wake up. But then Harper, I think we were still feeding through the night until maybe 15 months or so. And I don't know how long Amelia is going to feed through the night for. So it's just honestly so dependent baby to baby and child to child with how long that's going to continue for. And for some mums, it's really sustainable and they can do that and it works really well for their family. And maybe for other mums who maybe have to go back to night shift at the hospital or whatever circumstances they're in, maybe it doesn't work for them anymore and they have to make those changes. So I think it's just really individual, I would say, with what works for one
Mm.
family isn't going to work for another. So just working out what works best for you. And I suppose trying not to compare
Mm.
yourself to anybody else and just knowing that
Yeah.
night feeds are really normal throughout babyhood, but then also normal throughout toddlerhood as well.
I love that. I love that, every family's different and, people need different things. Some mamas might not be available to feed at night or be working a night shift.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's your own unique journey. So, okay, let's see. I am at 18 months.
Yeah.
He could feed 24/7. Like he just loves
Loves
to
it.
feed.
Yeah.
He loves being on my boob. He's just like
The same
he's
as
just very
Harper.
connected. We're like one little unit.
Yeah.
So, what does it look like for moms who don't want to keep feeding throughout the night? Like, what is the most gentle way to start? Is it weaning from the night feeds or, are there any ways to navigate? If at first, like, what age would you recommend that? And then what could mamas do?
I would say the minimum would be 12 months. I normally recommend it from around 18, if that's what they want to do, from around 18 months. But I
Mm.
would say I wouldn't recommend it below 12 months, I don't think, just from a lactation perspective. But If you have a 2-year-old and they're still feeding really frequently over the night and then it's not something that you want to do anymore, there are definitely ways that you can start to make that change. That would be a parent-led change as opposed to a baby-led change. And so you can start to do things like maybe either reduce the amount of feeds they're having overnight, or if you did want to night wean completely and you had an older toddler, that's okay as well. It's just whatever you want to do. But then I suppose as well, recognizing that night weaning isn't an automatic fix for sleep, in terms of, I think some people think that if I night wean my baby or toddler, that they're suddenly going to start sleeping all night. And while it does improve sleep for some families, sleep remains exactly the same for other families as well. So just keeping that in the back of your head, that sleep may improve, but then it may also stay exactly the same, or it might even get harder because you've taken away the best tool that's helped you get your little one back to sleep quickly overnight. But yeah, if you did want to start looking at ways to reduce feeds, some families will even do, for example, like no feeds from, for example, if baby goes to bed at 8 o'clock, they might say, okay, well, no feeds from 8 to 10, and then we'll feed for the rest of the night. And then once that starts going, okay, no feeds from 8 to 12, and then we can feed for the rest of the night. And it's just really about coming up with a plan as to what's going to work for that individual family. And that's something I do a fair bit as well, with working out what their needs are, and do they just want to reduce feeds, or did they want to stop night feeds, and work out a bit of a plan from there. But usually it's either reducing the length of a feed or reducing the frequency of a feed. That can be the first steps.
And then when the baby does wake up, so if you are in a time where you're not feeding and the baby wakes up, what is it? Just like rocking the baby, like trying other techniques to get the baby back to sleep and being there and being nurturing? Like, what do you recommend?
So definitely I would say it's a really great idea before you make that decision to add in as many sleep associations as you can. So if your baby is already, you do a shush and you do a bum pad or a back rub or whatever, like a rock, whatever you do with your baby, having all of those extra sleep associations will help, because then if you do take away feeding for that first couple of hours of the night, you can use all the other sleep associations that you've already added in. So if your baby's already used to being rocked while they're being fed, then you might still be able to rock them instead of feeding them, or sing to them, or dance to them, or pat them, cuddle them, whatever you usually do. That works really well for them. And again, depending on the age of your baby, I would do this for all babies, regardless of if they're on the younger end or the older end, really explaining to them what you're doing as well. So having that communication is key, because a lot of the time our little ones will understand a lot more than they can express. And so explaining to them, this is really hard right now. We would usually feed at this time, breastfeed at this time, or whatever you call it, but we're going to cuddle now instead, or whatever language that you like to use. And then for other families, they decide that's not what they want to do, and they might want to get their partner involved for that first 2, 3, 4 hours of the night and incorporate their partner into the settling for that time of the night, and they find that works best. So it's just really about coming up with a plan that's gonna work for that family.
Yeah, I love that. Different plans for different families.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and speaking of, bringing the partner in to help, that's something that I wanted to mention that has helped me so much in my sleep journey. So being able to do what I do is because I feel so supported and resourced with every other part of my life. Like if I had to
Amazing.
do what I do and then work and go into the office or work an 8-hour job or do all the mama stuff alone, like it would be really hard.
Yeah.
So I think as we speak about this, as we speak about, holistic sleep and being able to breastfeed all night and do all these things that are so nurturing,
Yeah.
it's like we also really need support. And I think it's another place where mamas are really lacking. And that might be why some people decide to try other methods for sleeping, because they're not feeling supported. So with my family, it's like every single morning, daddy comes in, takes River, and then I can either do a morning routine and meditate and play some music,
Yeah.
or I can just straight go back to sleep and have a moment for myself. And we've done that since the beginning. And
That sounds amazing.
also, yeah, I'd imagine if we ever did night wean, like I would really want daddy's help. That'd be a lot to hold throughout the night.
Yeah, and partners can be so supportive. I feel like having an amazing supportive partner like you do, and like I'm fortunate as well to have a really supportive partner, can just make the world of difference. And if you do have a partner, trying to get them involved really early on as well. Like you said, you've been doing it since day one. Try to get them involved really early on, because that's going to build their confidence too. I think a lot of dads might not have that confidence, especially if they haven't been involved from the start. So get them in on like everything early on and try to do as much as you can together.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's easy for moms to be like, no, I got it all. I can do it all myself. and then dads don't have the ability to help, and then they might not have the confidence after.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's like asking for help. And then
Mm.
second, when they help, this is a really big one that I've really experienced and go through all the time. It's like when they help, like really appreciating their help and not judging it because
Yeah.
we might do it differently, but like they're trying their freaking best and just like
Yes.
really appreciating it and maybe being loving and like the guidance and the adjustments because moms just have this
Yeah.
intuition. I'm like, I just know what River wants in every single moment. He doesn't want that. He doesn't like me to do that. He wants
Yeah.
that.
I
And so
know.
being really gentle with the dads and just showing love and appreciation for the ways that they show up. And sometimes they might know something that we don't. And it's really easy to
Yeah.
kind of dismiss that in my own personal
Exactly.
experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think even if they're
Mm,
doing it differently to how you do it, that's
yeah.
okay. And for example, if you breastfeed your little one to sleep, obviously dad can't breastfeed to sleep, but they're going to find their own way of
Yeah.
settling baby. So,
Yeah.
Amelia with my youngest, my husband will just walk around with her in the carrier or just give her a cuddle or a rock. Your partner will find their own way of doing things, and that's okay if it's different to how you do things.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so some mamas want to co-sleep, baby right next to them, cuddling up really close.
Mhm.
Some mamas are like, I don't sleep well with someone right next to me or right in my bed.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of mamas asking me about this in my co-sleeping journey.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the differences between baby sleeping in your bed or maybe baby sleeping right next to your bed or the baby sleeping in another room but you
Mhm.
responding when they cry? Like what are your thoughts and guidance on where the baby should sleep?
So I would say from a SIDS perspective to keep baby in the same room as you for the first, so in Australia, the rules are first 6 to 12 months. But I would say if you can, try to keep baby in the same room as you for 12 months. And then in regards to where they sleep in that room, it's honestly going to vary. Like I feel like I've just been talking about this all episode, but like family to family, because each of their
Mm,
circumstances is going to be different. I highly recommend that whether you never ever plan on co-sleeping and you definitely don't want to do it, or whether you already know that you want to do it, getting some education and support around that, because we know that a huge percentage of families, even if they never planned on co-sleeping, they will at some point. And the
mm,
dangers are when we do this when we're uneducated and we don't know how to reduce risk factors and how to set up a safe co-sleeping environment. And so I would say that if you are pregnant or you're already a mum, check out how to do it safely and what you can do. And there's an amazing book from Dr. James McKenna called Safe Infant Sleep, which I don't know if you've read
mm.
yourself.
I literally have that resource written down
Yeah,
somewhere.
Safe Infant Sleep by Dr.
Mm,
James McKenna. He studied co-sleeping his whole life, and he is a world-leading
wow.
expert in co-sleeping. And then you've also got your individual resources for your country as well. So for Australia, we've got Red Nose. And so that's going to give you a whole heap of information about how to do it safely and if co-sleeping is right for you and how to reduce the risks. Because for some families, it is better for their babies to be, on a sidecar bassinet that's still attached to the bed, and our babies are still within an arm's reach, but they have their own separate sleep space. And then other families are going to have baby in bed. Other families might have baby on a floor bed next to you. So there's a whole heap of different arrangements that you can
Yeah.
use. But I highly recommend checking out that book because it's really easy to read and gives you some great visuals, and it talks about how you can reduce the risks to make co-sleeping as safe as possible.
I love that. Yeah, and I love there's so many different options. Like baby can sleep right
Yeah.
next to you. You can have a mattress on the floor. You can sleep on the floor on a mattress with the baby. Like there's so many different options. So if you are, if baby is coming or if you are having a sleeping arrangement right now, like there's so many different options
Hmm.
and finding what works really best for you and your family. In my course, what I learned is it is best for mamas to be able to like touch, hear, feel, smell their
Yeah.
baby and for babies to have the same with the mama. So, not that the baby has to be in the bed with you, but if the baby's next to the bed, like close enough within arm's reach,
Yeah.
because like you and baby are syncing up with each other. You're syncing your
Yeah.
breath and everything. So,
It's so incredible,
um,
isn't it?
yeah, it's incredible. The design of mamas and babies is literally incredible. We can't even get it. It's fascinating. Like even I loved learning that when babies breastfeed, their saliva goes into our bodies and tells our body exactly what it needs. Like it is fascinating the mother nature design
I
of
completely
babies and
agree.
mamas. It's like it's a perfect design. There's
Hmm.
nothing we have to change. It's like just falling in line with the unique design that's already built out. I
Yeah.
love that you said about studying and finding resources for co-sleeping. I think that's really powerful, especially for moms who are, decided or not sure what they want to do or how they want to do it. I think
Mm.
really getting a great resource and really learning from someone that you trust is
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I've just always been obsessed with this journey and learning as much as possible. I didn't really study co-sleeping a lot. Like, it just felt so natural and so normal to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the co-sleeping and breastfeeding the other night, it just felt like a natural rhythm. But I do love
Yeah.
moms being able to study it more and to go into more
Yeah,
resources.
I suppose just knowing how to reduce the risk factors, because I think that's where if you look at like the accidents that happen, it's usually because of like a headboard or a footboard or furniture up against the
Mm,
bed or smoking and alcohol, partners that aren't aware that the baby's in the bed, maybe like a really soft mattress, or you're sleeping on a sofa or a couch, which we know is way more dangerous than sleeping on a firm mattress on the floor. Yeah, just knowing all of those kinds of things can help.
yeah. Okay, so my last question. So if a family has done sleep training, maybe a family has done the cry it out method and has done sleep training, what do you think they should do now? Like, hearing this, it might bring up a lot for them. What do you think the best thing is to do now?
Yeah. Oh, there's honestly no judgment with whatever families want to do because it's going to be, you honestly, I think, just make choices depending on the education you have at the time. And for a lot of families, that was the right choice for them at the time. And maybe it is different now and it doesn't feel like it's the right choice now. If sleep is going fine, then there's no need to make any changes. But if you find like sleep is, I suppose, a bit challenging at the moment, then often families who have sleep trained in the past just add that extra connection in now. If sleep does become a bit challenging, I find just really focusing on that connection and just literally increasing it as much as possible can really help in terms of sleep. So like having some one-on-one time with your child. So I feel like a lot of the times we're so busy during the day and just going from job to job, we might not have that intentional time with them where we're really putting the phones away, putting the distractions away, and just giving them your full undivided attention. You might not even realize that's not happening. And I know for me, life is so busy at the moment with 3 kids and having the business and everything else that I have to almost like really remind myself to stop and have that one-on-one time, because otherwise, as mums, we've always got a to-do list and we've always got jobs running through our head of what we need to do. So just, I suppose, making that time where you can connect. And if you have a partner or a family member or a friend who can maybe, if you've got other children, like spend time with the other children. So maybe you can have that one-on-one time with that child that day and then one-on-one time with another child the next day, or if you can do it both on the same day, depending on how well it works for you. But having that connection time can really help. And even sometimes the other thing that's helped is as part of the bedtime routine, having a special box that comes out where the child gets to pick something out of the box that they do together and then they get to pick the parent that they do it with, just helps build that extra love and connection, because essentially we want to fill up their love cup as much as we can before bedtime, especially if maybe you have to work or you have to be away from your child during the day. Just before bed or in the afternoon or evening, whatever time you have together, and really trying to fill up their love cup as much as possible, because that can really help with sleep.
I love that, filling up the love cup before bed.
Yeah. And it's the
Yeah,
same
and
for
it's
us
true.
as well. Hey, if your partner's
Yeah.
been busy all day and doing jobs and hasn't really given you any attention and then you go to sleep, you're kind of like, oh, where's my love?
Oh my god, it's so true. I wanna feel really special and really loved right before bed and
Yeah.
right when I wake up, and
Yeah.
we're the same as these little babies, just
Yeah.
wanting to feel so nurtured before bed and so nurtured when we wake up. Yeah, it's so true that moms can have so much going on, and we live in a society and in a way of life where we can be so busy with our phones and to-do lists
Yeah.
and jobs and work and creative projects, and what I really see what you're saying is this presence and this connection and this love,
Mm,
it has such a strong link to sleep and to breastfeeding and to just really nurturing our child. Like,
yeah.
being so present, I imagine it affects sleep so much. And when you can really fill them up with love and be so present, I imagine they can sleep better and they can just have a smoother breastfeeding journey too.
Yeah, because sleep's such a vulnerable state to be in, especially for our children.
Mm.
And so for them to feel really safe and secure, a lot of the times then they can fall asleep easier, which is, it's incredible.
Yes, I remember learning about that. Sleep is the most vulnerable state for
Yeah.
humans. Like, imagine being cavemen
Yeah.
and going to sleep and closing your eyes and like wondering if a tiger is going to get
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
And this is all coming back to me now. I remember this in the course. It's like when we are sleeping, we're so vulnerable. So to be able to feel so safe
Yeah.
and so held, and just like that our environment's safe, that mom is nearby, I'm okay to close my
Yeah.
eyes and rest. There's such a link, you're right, to the nervous system completely being able to shut down and go to
Mhm.
bed and sleep, and the feeling of safety.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with if you think about like how if we're stressed, our little ones also feel stressed, and if we're calm, our little ones also feel calm, and they have those mirror neurons that they mirror our own emotions, because it's the same thing with like the tiger coming in. If our babies are the same babies that were born back in caveman times in terms of their biology, if they're sensing that we're stressed, they're not going to want to go to sleep because they're like, oh, what's wrong? Like my primary caregiver's stressed. Like, is there a tiger? What's happening?
Oh my
Why is
God.
my primary caregiver feeling stressed? It's not safe for me to go to sleep because this isn't right. And so if we're feeling stressed, our little ones aren't going to be able to go easily to sleep. So I think a lot of the time focusing on our own calm first is going to help our little ones feel calm and then
Oh my
ultimately
God.
safe to go to sleep.
We've talked about this on other episodes, but our children are literally, they're just mirroring us.
Yeah.
And I so see that. Me and my partner have gone through, this first year of parenthood. We have gone through our bumps and our journeys. And I remember there's been times where we're like mad at each other and going to bed angry.
Yeah.
And River does not sleep well. And I wake up knowing, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he's really feeling what we're going through. And like that much more inspiring for me to be like, okay, me and my partner need to mend because he's feeling it all. He's feeling my stress, my nervous system. And that's been a big inspiration as a mama to like really have a calm nervous system and to really work on myself and to really take care of myself, because I know he's a complete mirror of how my nervous system's doing, how I'm feeling, how my stress levels are, how my emotions are. Like I can see his reflection.
Yeah. And it's again, I just think it's so incredible how we do mirror each other and how it all works in terms of co-regulation as well. Like I think I just did a post on Instagram about this last night about how our little ones need us to co-regulate with them and how our nervous systems support one another. So if we're calm, we can be their calm and help them down-regulate if they feel really heightened and stressed.
Yeah. I love that we are their co-regulators.
Yeah.
Babies, I think I was reading not even till like maybe 3 years old or later can they start to learn to regulate on their own. I mean, and like they're learning up until 3, but like before 3 years old, they cannot self-regulate or self-soothe. So we are the ones that regulate them. We are the ones that soothe them to sleep, because babies can't do this on their own. Like they look to us to do that.
Yeah.
And these things are so important because this is the information, the scientific information that helps us make decisions about how we want to parent. And a lot of it is intuitive though. Like I think a lot of mamas can really feel this.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think you feel it, don't you? Because if your little one's crying, I think most people, they get that like pull of they just want to go to their child to soothe them. And that's why, because like you say, we regulate each other and we can help them down-regulate and we co-regulate essentially with each other. And what I was talking about last night was how essentially if we don't co-regulate and if we do leave them to cry, they just kind of escalate and escalate and escalate and escalate to the point where their body is just spending so much energy, it'll actually just shut down to conserve energy. And so that's when you might find that your baby's gone to sleep and you think, oh, well, they've self-soothed, but they haven't. Their body's essentially just got to the point where they've just been burning so much energy that for their own kind of safety, they've just shut down. And so I think that's something as well that it's this big like misconception about self-soothing, and a lot of people don't realize that our babies are actually physiologically incapable of self-soothing, of down-regulating from a heightened state, and they need us to help them do that.
Yeah, that is a really big one too. I think that's a really big thing I learned as well about sleep training. It's not that they're soothing themselves and learning to sleep on their own, because they literally just don't have the physiological capabilities to do that, but they're literally going into a mechanism where they shut off to save themselves. It's like, I think again, just like about being like going back to like caveman time, you're crying out for help. I mean, just anytime you're crying out for help and no one's coming to save you. And babies are 100% dependent on us. There's other mammals, there's other species in the wild where like babies come out so much more independent, but our little humans, our little babies are so dependent on us.
Definitely.
And when they're crying out and no one's coming, the safest mechanism for their nervous system, for their biological state, is to literally shut off. And it's like a fear mechanism. It's a stress mechanism, and that gets stored in their body. And then people carry this for the rest of their lives. And then when we're older, we have to work on our attachment issues.
And I was reading something, I can't remember when, it was ages ago, about how when they were looking at the cortisol levels or stress levels in these babies, that they, even though they had shut down and they made it look like they were sleeping, their cortisol level, their stress levels were still really high. So their stress levels hadn't gone down. They were still really high. And it's, again, I suppose just having that understanding about what is happening can be so helpful, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's the most powerful thing is like just having more of an understanding. So I just encourage all mamas, no matter where you are in your journey, it's like just get more information, more resources, and then see
Yeah.
what feels really aligned and really true to you, and
Yeah.
then make an informed decision from there.
Yeah,
Speaking
definitely.
of babies mirroring us, the other day in our backyard, we had a cobra snake, like a
Oh,
pretty
wow.
big cobra snake.
Gosh,
And
that would have been scary.
me and my yes. Me and my partner are inside in his bed. We look out the window and my partner's like, "Oh god, there's a cobra." And like I
Oh
know there's
my
cobras here, but we've
gosh.
never seen one in our backyard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh my god, so cool. Let's go outside and look at it."
No,
And then all of a
I'd
sudden
be way too
yeah, I
scared.
was just like excited. I know. I get excited about these kind of things.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden we look out again and our cat, Murphy, who we just love,
Yeah.
is next to the cobra. And at this point we're like,
Oh.
"Oh no." And we like jump. We run out of the house. We had the nanny there, so the nanny runs out with us
Yeah.
and River, and like there's so much commotion. And we're like, "Hey, what do we do with this cobra?" And we're trying to like shove it in a corner to maybe call someone. We ended up losing
Yeah.
the cobra. Like
Oh, okay.
he disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know where he went.
Oh.
But so much commotion and like excitement and fear and anxiety and like daddy's going
Yeah.
into protector mode and all these things happened. But later on that day, River was really jumpy. I'd be like, "Oh, there's a mosquito," because like we always have mosquitoes in our house, and he'd kind of jump. Or
Yeah.
he'd see a little spider crawling around, he'd jump. And I just realized like, oh my god, in these moments, I want to stay so calm because I don't want him to be so jumpy or have a snake phobia. And like, of course,
Yeah.
dangerous. I want him to know, like, okay, cobra, we don't go
Don't go
near
near
it.
it.
We need to be safe. Yes, we need to figure out a protocol, but I don't want to get so amped up anytime we see like a cockroach or a spider or something because
Yeah.
he completely mirrors how we're feeling. And so
Yeah, it's so
the next day
interesting.
there was a giant, I mean, living in Bali, there's a lot of bugs. There's a giant, like the size of the palm of my hand, a spider.
Oh gosh.
And so I'm like, "Oh, there's a," and I knew it was harmless. So I'm like, "Let's go sit down." So we sat down next to the spider. I'm like, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "I want to sweep it up and put it outside." He just like mowed it all. So I'm like, "Okay, let's do that."
Yeah.
So we're just always just looking at how we mirror emotions.
It's hard though, isn't it? It's really like you have to think about
Mhm.
it's just constantly thinking about yourself, I suppose, with how you're going to react. And even it's like everything for parenthood, I suppose. It's really about regulating yourself, hey, and your own emotions.
Oh yeah. I think parenthood, mama journey has put me on a really big path of
Yeah.
learning more about my nervous system and learning more
Yeah.
about how to regulate. Like since being a mom, I signed up for an entire like nervous system course because I was like, I
Yeah.
really want to understand my nervous system better, my attachment styles better.
Yeah.
And this information is so much more precious when we start raising little children because we're like, okay, whatever we know, whatever we do, we pass these on to our babies.
Yeah.
So it's just like just such valuable information and it's fascinating to dive into.
Yeah, it is so interesting.
Okay, so last one. If you could share anything on a billboard for all mamas to see, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, it's a really hard one. Oh, I'd probably just say, just have like on a billboard, like you're doing amazing or something like that, because I feel like a lot of the time we don't hear that enough. And I remember when I first had Harvey, I think I was at the doctor's surgery and he was having his like, I can't remember why we were there even, but this old man just held the door open for me as I was leaving. And he's, "Oh, I just want you to know that you're doing so amazing." And I just burst into tears because I was like, I think he was like 2 months old or something. And it's just been like such a hard time. And just to hear like that supportive comment just made my mornings. I think just uplifting each other and supporting each other instead of tearing each other down, just letting each other know what an amazing job you are doing because everybody's just doing their best.
Thank you so much. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Mamas listening, you are doing amazing.
Definitely.
And yeah, I think it's not said enough. It's not heard enough. And I think mamas really need that. We really need to lift each other up and rally together and be on the same team and support each other with love and care. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Mama, you're on Instagram at Cocoon and Cradle.
That's
so I will
right.
put all this in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your wisdom, all you do for mamas.
Oh, my
Thank you
pleasure.
so
It was so
much.
nice to have a chat.
All right, Mama, thank you for tuning in. I am sending you so much support and love on your journey through motherhood. Remember, you are not alone in this beautiful, wild, and sometimes challenging journey of motherhood. This is your village. Please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this with anyone else that you think would benefit. Take care, Mama, and I will see you next week. Thank you for being part of the Mama culture.